Cheddar Man is probably the most well-known academically Mesolithic Brit. I've already made a video on him in the past, but back then my trait predictor hadn't existed yet. That video came out in September, and I only started working on trait predictor in November. In this video you will see Cheddar Man's DNA results with the newest current version of trait predictor. I want to remind you that in the description of this video there are links to not only Cheddar Man's raw genome, but also to my website, where you can purchase a trait predictor report for only $4. We all know Cheddar Man belongs to an extinct group of humans. Nonetheless, both his patrilineal and maternal lineages can be extensively found in modern Europeans. And this is what Cheddar Man scores with Eurogenes K36. Let's get into the video. Alright, so I think the first thing I want to show you is his results with Nashakot, what he looks like. And his results with Nashakot look very similar to another Western hunter-gatherer that I made videos on only 2 days ago. So we see the same exact phenotypes showing up in the closest, among the closest three to Cheddar Man and that other hunter-gatherer from Germany. So it looks like the closest phenotype is this stranded, this I don't like the names because it sounds really goofy, you know. I think it's just a general white person with sort of darkish hair and skin and lighter eye color. That's the way I see it. Followed by that is this phenotype, which is basket, which is definitely very unique, very easy to remember, very prominent facial features such as the nose and it's just overall very easy to remember phenotype. And followed by that is stranded, but a slightly darker version with darker eye color. So these are the three closest phenotypes to Cheddar Man, and they are sorted actually in ascending order from closest distance to furthest distance. And there's like 60 or 70 phenotypes in the database, so there's a lot to choose from. And out of those 60 or 70, I don't remember how many exactly, I think it's 61, I don't remember exactly. But out of those 60-something phenotypes, these three are the closest. And actually, this individual Cheddar Man can be modeled in terms of phenotypes as a mixture of stranded with green eyes plus basket. That's the closest model to him. That model has a distance of 0.67, which actually isn't even that close with my trait predictor. It is good to see closer distances, but further, as we move to the right, the distance increases. So all these models to the right have higher distances. So for example, this model is even a little bit further from Cheddar Man. So this is once again stranded with green eyes plus I think it's alpinate. So this is a little bit further from Cheddar Man in reality, what he might look like, than this model, which is stranded plus Basque. The third model, which is stranded with green eyes plus stranded with brown eyes, is even a little bit further. So Cheddar Man might have, because of this, Cheddar Man might have had some traits that are associated with Mediterraneans, such as longer noses, and because that also plays a part in the calculation. The nose shape plays a part in the calculation. So Cheddar Man might have had some traits that are quite southern in terms of appearance, because this phenotype mixture is closer to him than this phenotype mixture. And in terms of the eye color, it looks like his predicted eye color is brown or hazel. Unlike the blue that we've been taught to, unlike the blue that so many people say that Western hunter-gatherers, and this even this image, this funny little image that I shown in the beginning of the video, he looks black and black hair and he has blue eyes. It's just ridiculous. Nobody looks this way. There is nobody with this kind of an appearance. And yes, in reality, his eye color was darker. It was hazel or brown. It's not darkest brown, but it's not blue either. Darkest brown and blue, these are the categories that he definitely doesn't have. He definitely does not fall into. So his eye color was most likely hazel, although brown is also quite possible. Green and blue eyes with an amber center is also quite possible. Blue and darkest brown, that's completely out of the picture. When it comes to his hair color is black. The second largest category after black is dark brown, and then it's red, and then it's all the other hair colors. So it looks like there is very little probability of him having any other hair color other than black. So this is somebody with hazel eyes, black hair, and it looks like light brown skin. Can you picture a person like that? I can picture a person like that living in Syria or in Iraq. And it's definitely not... Wait, let me show you. It's definitely not whatever this is. Like, this is so deranged. This is so deranged. I don't even have one. I don't even have a phenotype that looks like this in my oracle because it's so ridiculous. Yeah. So okay, moving back to the topic. So it looks like he's got hazel or brown eyes, or green or blue with amber center. That's also possible. It looks like he's got black hair. It looks like he's got light brown or olive skin. White skin and palest skin, that's kind of out of the picture. Dark brown skin, that's also kind of out of the picture. Most likely his skin color is light brown or olive. For hair texture, it looks like he's got curly hair, although wavy is also quite possible. And there's plenty of, English people, British people, there's plenty of British people with curly hair. It's not unusual to see British people with curly hair, not in the slightest. So I'm not too surprised by this. When it comes to coloring related variants found in the file, look at that. This is really cool. So he definitely has a very light color genotype in the OCA2 and HERC2 region. By the way, we can actually check what he would score for eye color if we only took into account OCA2 and HERC2. I have this little calculator here that does that ignores all the other genes besides OCA2 and HERC2. So if you took into account only OCA2 and HERC2, he scores blue eyes for sure. Very blue-eyed result. But because of all the influence from the other genes, he's actually scoring hazel or brown instead. So HERC2 and OCA2 are pretty important for eye color classification, but they are not the only genes implicated in eye color. And because of that, despite him having blue eye haplotype 3 and blue eye haplotype 2 and blue eye haplotype 1, just very extreme result, he still doesn't really have blue eyes. And for example, he doesn't have any light color variants in this variation of SLC24A5, which is implicated in skin color, but also is implicated in eye color. So because it's implicated in eye color, this is a big impact. This variation has a big impact on the result. And he doesn't have any light color variants in any of the variations of SLC45A2. This also has a big impact on the eye color result. Major impact. So, people have these ideas sometimes that a certain genetic variation only plays an impact on skin color and that's it, nothing else. A certain genetic variation only plays an impact on eye color and that's it, nothing else. But the reality is, all of these variations play an impact on all of the three traits. The skin color, the eye color, the hair color, they all make an impact. It's different depending on the variation. For example, these variations in SLC45A2, they have a bigger impact on hair color than they do on eye color, but they still make an impact on eye color as well. And this is like extremely uncommon for Europeans to score this way, by the way. Pretty much every single modern European is going to score 2 light color variants for all of these variations. So this is really, really uncommon to see. Well, I guess for a Mesolithic European, it's not that unusual. But for a modern European, this would be very, very unusual. He also has 2 light color variants in this variation of IRF4, which is kind of this hunter-gatherer variation that predisposes you to have red hair and blue eyes and pale skin. Is it particularly important? No, not really. It doesn't play that big of an impact. Where is it most commonly found nowadays? It is most commonly found in Ireland, in the British Isles, and it is also commonly found in Comies. Alfred is currently down. It is an allele frequency database that you can look up the frequencies of certain alleles in different populations. And on Alfred, Comies actually were the second group of people on Earth and in Europe after the Irish, who had the highest rates of the derived allele frequency here. So the Comey actually come close to the Irish in terms of derived allele frequency in this variation of IRF4. And there's this meme circulating on the internet that Comies are like red-haired or Udmurts or something like that, and they're very red-haired. If that meme has any basis on reality, it is probably because of this. Okay, it looks like he's got 1 derived variant in this variation of Keto G, so it looks like he's actually got a little bit darker skin tone than typical for modern Europeans, which is surprising. Keto G, this variation of Keto G is pretty important for skin tone. It's one of the more important variations for skin color prediction, actually. And it looks like he's got heterozygous genotype here. For most modern Europeans have 2 light color variants in this variation. And various Japanese, even Indians, have 2 light color variants in this variation. But sub-Saharan Africans typically don't have any light color variants here. So he's somewhere intermediate between the Japanese and the sub-Saharan Africans. Let's put it this way. So it's definitely quite unusual to see this as well. And he has 1 light color variant in this variation of MC1R. So he's actually a carrier for a ginger variant in MC1R, which is very interesting. But because of his super dark genotype, because of stuff like stuff like this, he still doesn't have red hair. That's quite impossible for him to have red hair, even though he has all of these genetic variations that predispose him to red hair, such as this right here in MC1R or this right here in IRF4. It is still quite impossible for him to have red hair. All right, now let's move on to something I just added yesterday. And by the way, this will not be on the trait predictor executable that's on itch, because I'm not going to be making any updates to the one that's on itch until May 22nd. This is going to be my big update, and May 22nd, you're going to see all of these changes on itch. But this is something I just added yesterday, and this will be in your report. So if you purchase a report from me for $4 or $7 for 2 files, you will see this in your reports. Let's go ahead and open biomarkers. Look at that. Real pretty. So it looks like his expected level of vitamin D is way below average, which is kind of unfortunate. Way below average level of vitamin D. It looks like for cholesterol, it looks like he's got a level that's LDL cholesterol slightly above average, which is kind of not that good actually. LDL cholesterol, you want to have less of that. And for HDL cholesterol, looks like he's got a level that's slightly below average, which is also not really all that good. You would want to have HDL cholesterol levels that are better, that are higher than average, because HDL is kind of the good cholesterol, right? LDL is the bad, HDL is the good. So he's got all of these genotypes are kind of bad actually. His genotype for vitamin D, not genotype, but his phenotype, his predicted phenotype for vitamin D is kind of bad. Lower levels of vitamin D. For LDL cholesterol, it's kind of bad as well. Higher levels of LDL. For HDL, it's kind of bad as well. Lower than average levels of HDL. So it's just kind of really unfortunate genotypes for all of these. I'm getting confused. Phenotypes, excuse me. Predicted phenotypes. And for glucose levels, it looks like he's got slightly higher than average predicted levels of glucose as well, which is also unfortunate. Wow. So it definitely has a lot of negatives when it comes to the biomarkers panel. But overall, I'd say it's not that bad. It's okay. It looks okay. All right. Let me show you his ethnic calculator results. So this might be interesting, but not really also, because the ethnic calculator with my trait predictor is just really not that good. He's scoring closest to French, followed by Finnish, followed by British. All right, and he's getting modeled as a mixture of Finnish plus North Germanic, or corded ware plus Bailulilai from Lithuania. I mean, I guess it's not that bad, because Bailulilai from Lithuania, I remember it's like an outlier sample. It's super Western and super Northern. So him scoring corded ware from plus this, I guess it's not that unusual to see. But I just don't really like the ethnicity calculator results here. I don't want to improve the ethnicity calculator, because it would be I would have to redo the whole oracle, and I would have to do all this work, and I just don't want to do all this work. So, and by the way, you can get ethnicity predictions for free on GED Match. So, yeah, I mean, why should I be the one to do it? Why should I be the one to do it? Okay, so when it comes to his results for polygenic risk scores, this is something we're going to move on to right now. What he scores for the polygenic risk scores, it looks like he's got a below average odds of atrial fibrillation. Very interesting. Below average odds for DVT, deep vein thrombosis. In case you don't know what deep vein thrombosis is, it's basically blood clots that form in your veins. It's very dangerous, and it is what I don't want to get all political, but it is what Russian media has speculated has killed Navalny. So according to the Russian state media, this is the cause of death for Navalny, which is like an opposition leader. But of course, it's I'm not gonna get into that. Too much politics. For bipolar disorder type 1, it looks like he's got a slightly above average odds for bipolar disorder type 1. It looks like he's got a above average odds for schizophrenia, so he's definitely got quite a high score for schizophrenia. Not super high, not extreme, but a little bit high. Looks like he's got a slightly above average score for type 2 diabetes, and yeah, that also paired together with him scoring this for glucose, that doesn't look so good. That does not look so good at all. It looks like for Alzheimer's, he's got a slightly below average score, basically average score for Alzheimer's. Looks like he's got also a below average score for multiple sclerosis. He looks pretty healthy. I don't really want to take schizophrenia and bipolar type 1 too seriously, because these are very rare conditions. Something like 0.4% of people have them. So having a 2 times increased odds for that, you still have like a 0.8% chance of getting it. It's nothing. It's basically nothing. For cancer section, looks like 5 risk variants for breast cancer at 22, which is all right, pretty typical. 15 for testicular cancer at 24, which is kind of bad actually. You don't want to see that many for testicular cancer. So we're gonna look into testicular cancer a little bit later. We're gonna see what risk variants he has. it is not that good. Scoring 15 risk variance out of 24 for testicular cancer is not that good. It's pretty bad. So this is something we have to keep in mind. Then 0 risk variance for celiac disease out of 12, which is pretty typical, pretty good. 0 for GSS out of 18, which is pretty typical, pretty good. 6 for Crohn's out of 24, which is actually not that good. So we're gonna have to watch out for Crohn's as well. We're gonna get to that a little bit later. 0 for Riefenstein's out of 22, which is pretty typical, and 6 for Parkinson's out of 42, which is pretty typical as well. All right. Okay, so for mental health results, it looks like he's got Warrior genotype in COMT, all right, and also Warrior genotype in MAOA. Very, very extremely European result. Stereotypically European, definitely less of the COMT and MAOA enzyme, and therefore slower breakdown of dopamine, therefore higher dopamine levels, and certain advantages in attention and motivation tasks, disadvantages in stress resiliency. Very typical Warrior genotype, stereotypically European. Once again, I will remind you what it is. And it looks like he's got AG in Pro-Phenetin Pro, so heterozygous genotype in Pro-Phenetin Pro, and he does not have the A1 allele in TAC1. So, kind of like a typical human result. There's not much to talk about in terms of DRD2 genotypes. I usually skip over this stuff, but maybe I should talk about it right now. Or maybe I shouldn't, because you guys will get bored, and yeah, let me not talk about all the boring stuff. So it looks like he does not have long form 5-HTTLPR, and he does not have a decrease in the risk of depression, so he's got short form 5-HTTLPR like most people. And let me just show you what it looks like. Hold on. Because short or long form 5-HTTLPR, it's a genotype, but it is also a phenotype. It's a duplication that can occur in your genetics, and it can be predicted with other genotypes located nearby. So there's a duplication, and if you have the duplication, that means you have long form 5-HTTLPR. If you have a deletion, that means you have short form 5-HTTLPR. I want to find some pictures of what it looks like. There used to be a picture here, but come on. Well, okay, I'm going to show you this then. So basically, when you have long form 5-HTTLPR, you have better serotonin transportation, whereas if you have short form, you got slightly worse serotonin transportation. So this has implications in risk for depression. This has implications in the risk of suicidal ideation, all those types of things. So for him, it looks like he's got short form 5-HTTLPR, therefore some trouble transporting serotonin, which is really unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. Slightly higher odds of depression. But I mean, that's kind of typical. Most people have short form. I'm actually in the exception because I have long form. Okay. We're going to skip autism. I don't care about this at all. DDC, we're going to skip this. I don't care about this at all. For lactose persistence, it looks like he does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. All right, he is not lactose persistent. For OXTR and the empathy gene, it looks like he's got this genotype which leads to 2 variants for higher levels of empathy. And he's got this genotype which leads to lower oxytocin and empathy, which is kind of interesting. All right. It's kind of all over the place. I can't say that he's got much of an empath or a sociopath genotype here. For diabetes, it looks like he does not have. Does he? No, he does not have type 1 diabetes. All right, good to see. This variation right here is by far the most important variation for type 1 diabetes risk. Like everything else doesn't really matter all that much. This is the big one. Like it matters the most for type 1 diabetes risk. It looks like for G6PD, he does not have any risk variants for that. For anemia, for SLC 2A1 gene panel, it looks like he does not have any risk variants for this. I forget what it codes for. It says GLUT1 deficiency syndrome, but I forget what that is exactly because I mean I just kind of look it up and it goes in one way, goes in one ear, goes out the other ear right after I'm done coding. So I don't really remember what this is. I don't really want to look it up either. For SGLT1 gene panel, I just know it has to do with processing glucose. All of these panels have to do with processing glucose. That's why I put them here right next to diabetes. Here he's got higher glucose levels, GG in ASN51 SIR, which is very interesting. And he did score. Once again. Let's move on back to biomarkers. Hold on. He did score above average score for glucose here as well, which is kind of interesting. He's got AG here, which leads to higher glucose levels once again. And he's got GC here, which means one risk variant for glucose galactose malabsorption. All right. I don't really know what that is. I don't want to look it up. If you care, you should look it up, but I don't care too much about that. For hemochromatosis, it looks like he is not a carrier for. Wait, no. He's heterozygous here, so which means he actually carries one risk variant for hemochromatosis in S65C. Very, very interesting. All right, so he's a carrier for hemochromatosis in S65C. Quite cool. He doesn't have H63Z variants or C282Y variants, but he does carry risk variants in this variation of S65C. Hemochromatosis, by the way, is a very European thing. It's very European, and it's specifically Northwest European. It is a trait that's often called the Celtic curse because it is just so stereotypically Celtic and like Irish and Scottish. Um, Somehow I'm Russian and I have two risk variants for hemochromatosis in this variation, but it looks like Cheddar Man has got two risk variants here. Okay, pretty cool. And I remember there were Cro-Magnons too. If you watched some of my previous videos, there was Cro-Magnons from Sungir who had risk variants here in H63D. All right. For Alzheimer's, it looks like he does not carry risk variants for Alzheimer's and APOE. All right, which is pretty cool. That's all we really need to think about. For multiple sclerosis, looks like he does not have any risk variants for MS in HLA gene, which is really cool. Once again, looks like he's quite protected from multiple sclerosis. Cardiovascular disease panel. This is so much information and so much stuff I really don't want to talk about. Just so much stuff. I wonder if I should get rid of some of this stuff because this is just so much information. It's hard to process. I'm gonna skip it. For myopia, it looks like he does not have the G allele here, which would protect from myopia. So this leads to slightly increased risk of myopia. However, he's got some genotypes that protect from myopia as well. By the way, for myopia, these genotypes are actually ranked in descending order from most important to least important. They are actually ranked. They are not in random order. So when you look at your results for myopia, you know that they are ranked from highest impact to lowest impact. And they are all pretty high impact. For miscellaneous section, looks like no micropenis. All right, really good to see. No micropenis here as well. All right, really, really good to see. Better performing muscles like the sprinter rather than endurance athlete. All right. One fat gene variant in FTOs, RS9949609, so slightly higher odds of obesity and sleep apnea. It looks like his genotype in EDAR is extremely European, definitely not East Asian genotype in EDAR. He is also not an Asian flusher, and he's got lower odds of alcoholism and normal risk of esophageal cancer. For telomere panel, it looks like he's got some genotypes for shorter telomeres. However, this is the most important genotype for telomere length, and it looks like he's got definitely longer telomere length, and he actually has 7.2 years longer lifespan, which is really, really crazy. 7.2 years is a lot. If I could add 7.2 years to my lifespan, I definitely would. And by the way, I have the opposite. I have GG here. So for me, I have 7.2 years shorter lifespan, which is kind of interesting. Really unfortunate. But of course, there's other factors that contribute to your lifespan besides your telomeres. There's how you live your life. If you have diabetes and you're fat and you're not exercising, you're going to be shortening your lifespan by yourself. You don't need your telomeres to do that. Okay, so it looks like for drug response, I added this here, which is pretty cool. So when treated with metoprolol, it looks like he's got AA here and CC here. And we can look this up here, AA here and CC here carriers, 15-point drop in blood pressure. So he's definitely very affected by this drug, metoprolol. Metoprolol, I remember what it is. It is a beta blocker that is used to decrease blood pressure. So metoprolol on him works very, very well. It looks like he's got greater odds of cannabis-induced psychosis. Once again, very interesting because it is not a stereotypically European genotype at all. Stereotypically European genotype is the opposite, TT here, and that would lead to a protection from cannabis-induced psychosis. In his case, though, he seems to have greater odds of cannabis-induced psychosis, although that's also somewhat commonly found in Europeans. For albinism, it looks like he does not have any albinism variants, and he's also not a carrier of Melanesian blonde hair variants. All right. For familiar Mediterranean fever panel, it looks like he does not have any risk variants for that. All right, really good to see. For MTHFR panel, it looks like he's got normal homocysteine levels. All right. Slightly lower than average odds for a variety of illnesses from autism to coronary heart disease. All right, that's really good to see. For cancers panel, it looks like he's got some risk variants for breast cancer, which is kind of unfortunate. And we wanted to see testicular cancer risk. Okay, so for testicular cancer risk, his genotypes actually aren't that bad. So he's got this genotype, which leads to reduced risk of testicular cancer. He's got this genotype, which is to 3 times increased risk of testicular cancer, but really it's heterozygous, so that's good because it could be like 6 times instead. So his genotypes for cancer, for testicular cancer, are actually pretty good, a little bit better than I expected. For leukemia panel, it looks like he does not carry any risk variance for leukemia. All right, really good to see. For atrial fibrillation, for rare diseases and traits panel, excuse me, I just added atrial fibrillation here on the top. Let's see. Okay, so he's got 5.2 times risk of rheumatoid arthritis. All right, so that's one of the diseases he might have a predisposition to. No risk variance for deafness, no biotinase deficiency, normal risk for DSPS. It looks like he just got normal, pretty good genotype here. No, not a carrier for Sanfilippo syndrome risk. No von Gerks, not a carrier for Bloom syndrome. Slightly decreased risk for cellular autoimmune disease, including Addison's. No GSS. Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. I mean it's a pretty good result. It looks like there is nothing concerning here at all. I can't find anything that would be concerning. For celiac disease panel, looks like he does not carry any risk variance for celiac disease. This guy is really healthy. I just want to remark that. I mean, there's nothing at all concerning that's found here. Allergies. I don't know if I want to talk about that. Yeah, let's skip that. Androgen receptor gene panel looks like he's got higher odds of baldness. All right, that's pretty cool. Typical for Europeans. Crohn's disease panel. Okay, it looks like he's got lower risk of Crohn's. Once again, his 6 risk variants for Crohn's. It looks like none of them are in the important variations. So once again, for his Crohn's syndrome risk, also really good, looking really, really good. For Canavan syndrome, it looks like he does not have any risk variants for Canavan syndrome. Really, really good. And for HIV and AIDS panel, it looks like he's got 2 protective variants here, which lead to 90% reduction in HIV viral load. So he's even protected from HIV. So I really don't know. There is nothing at all. This person is unusually healthy if you just look into the genetics of it all. Muscular dystrophy myopathies, it looks like he does not have any risk variance for that, and 0 risk variance for ADL out of 30. Once again, doesn't have any predisposition to adrenoleukodystrophy. In case you don't know what that is, adrenoleukodystrophy is basically when your brain has some trouble getting rid of certain very long chain fatty acids, and they build up and they destroy a myelin sheath. I think that's what it's called, and you end up just becoming a vegetable and then dying. And it usually happens around 15 to 20 years old. For color blindness panel, it looks like he's got 0 risk variance in OPN1LW, but 1 risk variant in OPN1SW. So he's a little bit predisposed to color blindness, but not that much because, for example, I have 1 risk variant here as well, and I don't have color blindness whatsoever, nor do I have any relatives with it. So I guess he's a little bit predisposed, but not really. For FTO gene panel, it looks like he does not have any risk variance here, but he's got some genotypes that lead to increased risk for obesity, for sure. Yes, he's got some genotypes that are homozygous for increased risk for obesity, and he's got some genotypes that are homozygous for no increased risk for obesity. So, and he's also got some heterozygous genotypes, a lot of heterozygosity here as well. All right. Syncope panel, it looks like based on 6 SNPs, he has pretty much dead average risk for syncope. All right. Pretty cool. Dead average risk for syncope. Syncope, in case you don't know, is fainting randomly. Like when you, for example, stand in church and you sing and you have a syncope, you faint. I had that. Biotraits panel, looks like he's got this genotype here, which leads to slightly longer than average sleep duration. 2 copies of hunter-gatherer CLTCL1 gene variant. I have a hard time pronouncing this, which leads to reduced ability to process carbs and sugars. So basically, the reason it's named hunter-gatherer is not because it's particularly found in some subset of hunter-gatherer populations. No, it's because it's simply these people who discovered these genes. They figured that it would be beneficial to a hunter-gatherer to have this genotype, because hunter-gatherers don't really need to process much carbs and sugars. Whereas the farmer genotype, instead, they figured it would be beneficial to farmers and agricultural societies because it conveys a advantage in processing carbs and sugars. But it doesn't really matter all that much because, for example, it doesn't have an ethnic connotation to it, is what I'm trying to say. Because Malta boy, for example, ancient North Eurasian, had 2 copies of the farmer variants, right? So it's not an ethnic. It is not named so because of the ethnic connotations. It is named so because of the phenotypical connotations and what it actually does. Put it this way. Wet earwax, smellier body odor, normal colostrum, and this is typical for non-East Asians. All right. East Asians apparently have cleaner body odor or no body odor very frequently. All right. Okay, so he's got GG here, which leads to a significant increase in the risk of rheumatoid arthritis and also increased risk of IgA neuropathy, a disease in which IgA protein builds up and damages the filtering part of the kidney. All right. Um, no increased protection from age-related maculopathy. All right. But he's got this genotype, which leads to a significant reduction in the risk of age-related macular degeneration. Once again, really healthy, really healthy genotypes here. Um, I don't really want to talk about this too much. Okay, it looks like he is likely to smell asparagus metabolites in urine, which is pretty cool. Okay, and now let's move on to the blood group panel. So his genotypes, I don't really want to talk about the genotypes. Let's just talk about the prediction. The prediction for him is that he's got definitely blood type. Let me zoom in. Hold on. I want to zoom in. I zoom in? Won't let me zoom in. Okay, so he's definitely got blood type O. Blood type A is also sort of technically possible. I mean, it's above 5%. If we treat 5% as sort of the significance threshold, it is also quite possible, but also like not really. Uh, type B and type AB is completely out of the picture, so most likely his blood type is O. All right. Well, that's pretty much all there is to it. Thanks for watching my video until the very end, and leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Um, You can, once again, I will remind you that you can download his file in 23andMe format from link which is in the description of the video. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.